Okay, then you probably get started here. Okay, good morning. This is the weekly VOLTHA TST meeting. And as usual, if anybody has anything they'd like to add on the agenda, feel free to just jump in and start editing away. Just some minor announcements. These were a few things that came up over the last week in regards to some patches that have been going into the system. It's nothing major. And all of this is documented in on the website in docs.volta.org. Just a reminder, when any patches that are submitted need to have a JIRA ticket included in the commit message. You can if there's only a single ticket, you can insert it into the first line of the message. If there's multiples, you can paste them into the body. That's all good. And let me see. Patches that are submitted need to increment the version file. That's used downstream when we're tagging and publishing the artifacts to the repositories. We had an odd case last week where a patch was able to be submitted and merged that did not have a version file. And I'd have to look into the details more, but my suspicion is sources were probably modified in two patches. The first patch was merged and went in and incremented the version file. The second patch contained basically the same edits, so there was no real content to change. But I think the combination of it, basically, we had an up-to-date file without a version file, but a merge was still needed, probably to get it back in sync with the head. But the patch was merged. Subsequently, the Jenkins job that ran to update the branch pointers, that job failed because a version file wasn't included. But that's easy enough to fix. The third item, just a reminder, when you update sources, the copyright notice should be updated in the year that the file was modified in. And I added a section on VOLTHA docs with an example of it. Basically use the copyright notice should span a date range. If you put -present in here, I've heard that that's not legally binding in some contexts. So, just trying to update the date for the current year. And this has been being added in the repositories for a while, but it's not completely done everywhere. If you add a new file or update a copyright notice, just add these SPDX copyright lines. SPDX is a format that's used, I think Linux Foundation probably came up with it, or Linux Foundation Europe maybe. It's a tokenized version of the copyright notice, and there's tools set up that will allow linting of licensed text to make sure that notices are current and they're following a standard format. We're not doing it yet. There are lint targets in the system. You can use make lint reuse, and that would actually check them. But we're not actively checking them right now. At some point in the future, we will need to start doing that though. But that's just a reminder. So JIRA tickets, version file edits, and copyright notices. So that's easy enough. Does anybody have any new items they would like to cover this week?
So the pipeline problems, what we are seeing, I think so they are a bit generic. Like most of them are timeouts. Even the VGC one times out, the Protos times out.
Yeah.
We pushed in a few changes in the adapter, but they had Protos dependency, so that's why the build failed. But most probably they're to timeout as well.
Yeah, we do. I've got some more details about that down a little bit later on. Yeah, we seem to have a rash of transient failures going on right now. There's some of them are around VOLTHA Protos, and it looks the ones we've been talking about are around Golang CI for the profiling. There's been quite a few failures around the end-to-end connectivity tests that I've been seeing in DT, TT, and I think there was another one for Sadis. It's not specific to the patches that are going in. In fact, I've been submitting a lot of no-op patches lately. Some of them adding pre-commit tool configs, which that's not touching any of the source. But jobs are failing here and there with some frequency in the end-to-end tests. And yeah, we can go into the timeouts as well. VOLTHA Proto seems to be affected by a few timeouts. If anybody would like to add more items while I'm typing this in, feel free.
Hi, Joey.
Hi.
I had a task from last week's meeting, so I added a note there. It was about if there are any needs in the BB sim, if the multiplan and I feature can be tested with the BB sim. So maybe you can just copy my note from the last week's meeting.
That would make too
Yeah,
much sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Okay.
It seems that yes, we need some modifications on the BB sim side for the multiple NNI tests.
Okay. Let's see. So, would you like to add anything else, or do we need to, are there any other items that people would like to bring up? Okay, I guess we can keep going. Just a few updates, and we'll get into the timeout problems and all that fun stuff shortly. So for the ongoing Jenkins and JJB software upgrades, so there was an effort going, this is part of the Linux Foundation transition thing, pieces that we've been working on. So two of the big ones that we need to do is one, transition the Garrett repositories over to Linux Foundation. And a dependency for that transition is upgrading our copy of Jenkins and JJB, the software, because we have a lot of older versions in place. The upgrades have been going on. We're trying to reach version 6, which is 0.60 something. And we're going to upgrade to version 5 before that. There have been a few dependencies that have come up along the way. But that effort got blocked a little bit last week with some AWS node allocate. We're having problems spinning up AWS nodes about a week and a half ago, and the current rash of problems with transient failures and timeouts. So that effort got put on hold for a little bit, but it's still ongoing. So with the failures that have been coming up, I've been starting to try and track patches. There's a link to it in here too. I've got a page started on GitHub. So this is a grid of open patches, Jira tickets that are associated with them, Jenkins jobs that are associated with them. If there's merge conflicts, those are just attributes. So these VOL columns across the top, these have been finding are Jira tickets that are open that are the end-to-end test failures, the timeouts, and the problem that manifested in SCA and GoLink or GoLang CI linting that came up. And it's far from complete, but as you can see, we're having different patches affected by the same test failures. The transient failures, especially for the end-to-end connectivity tests, you basically can take the same patch, run it several times, and you'll see. I haven't looked at how frequently it's happening, but you'll get sometimes it passes, sometimes it fails. And I'm not convinced that these failures are specifically related to the patches. So we have some failures to try and debug in the test suites. But I'm going to try and track some of this content here. And the Volta Protos failures are also here. That's 5332, and I forget what the other one is. Let's see, before we get into the Jira tickets, just a couple of updates. So the pre-commit tool, pre-commit hook tool I mentioned a little while back, that we can use to do additional linting of sources. I've added configs in 14 of the repositories. It's installed and usable in 11 of them. 12 of them, the repositories are patched, but I just haven't merged them in yet because of failures and some other problems. And the library makefiles, this was an effort to refactor the makefiles directory in each of the repositories, remove the copy and pasting logic that we have in them, and use a central set of makefile repositories to basically have consistent behavior everywhere. Again, the same 14 repositories. It's been deployed in 5, patched in, merges are pending in 3, and I've got to do some more of them. This is a very lightweight deployment of the repository as a Git submodule into the Volta repository. They're there, they're not being heavily used. Some work will be needed to transition from the local makefiles over to the library makefiles, but it should be all non-invasive, and the local makefiles will just be deprecated over time as the logic can be switched over. If you want to play around with the pre-commit tool, I added a little help section in Volta docs for it. There is a makefile target called pre-commit. If you CD into a repository and type in make space pre-commit, that target will install a Python virtual environment and then run the pre-commit tool. You can use it. You can do this manually if you want. The instructions are here, or just use the makefile target. But that's available now. Okay, so Jira tickets. These were these were the tickets that were affected by the end-to-end ping test failures. I've captured some of the failures from the logs and Jira tickets, and this is the GitHub page I just pointed to earlier, that you can see which patches are affected by these failures. So there have been 2. Let me see. Are there any questions about the end-to-end tests? This is just FYI that this is going on right now. Okay, we have 2 other kind of strange failures going on in the Volta Protos repo. Now, one of them Ablash referred to earlier. We have a patch that's being run. It passes on occasion and it fails on occasion. These are the tickets for it too. The strange thing is I've gone in and mined out some of the statistics from the job that passed and the job that failed. On the job that's failing, there's a noticeable spike in runtime overhead. Like the number of Go imports that were running jumped from 6 seconds to 37 seconds. That's probably not a lot, but these are some of the increases. Oh, sorry. So the underlying problem is this patch that's running periodically encounters a timeout while the Golang CI lint phase is running. And this is some of the behavior that we're seeing that's contributing to the failure, but we still haven't identified what's actually causing it. But like linting the Go format syntax jumped from 3 up to 21. You know, it's a death by 1,000 cuts. There's just a lot of little things in here, but like this one process running jumped from 22 to 198 milliseconds. But that's still going on right now. We're trying to identify what the problem is, but there is a timeout in Volta Protos right now, and it seems to be related to variant behavior in the profiling, but we haven't identified the source on that one yet. It's minor changes in the patches when the jobs that passed and fail ran, but it's the same basic tool chain, Golang lint CI version. So there's not a lot of differences in there. So there's something else contributing to the problem. The second one, this might have been from Vinod's patch. We had a patch that ran and a job failed silently. This is the good old SCA failure with no, no, that's not the one. Let me see if I still got it here. This is the one where we run a job and it gets to the end and it says there's no SCA reports available, and just, you know, have a nice day. Not much to it. Sugar, I don't have the right links in here, sorry. So what I was able to find, I went into the makefile and I added some banners within the individual targets that were running, so you can actually see what is running. And this makefile in particular was running the tox command. Tox is basically a wrapper around a bunch of different things. And one of the things it's running is make Python test, not text test. So there's it's either a 10 or 20 minute, there's a 20-minute timeout when we're running the Python test suite within the Volta Protos repository. So I modified the tox command to run in verbose mode, tox-vvv, and we're getting a lot more log output from the Volta Protos jobs. One item that came up, I don't know if this is a problem or not, but somewhere we're passing a compiler flag -standard equals GNU99 on the command line. This is only a warning. I'd like to clean these things up anyway, because you don't know what they're going to be affecting. But right now, the Volta Protos build is including a C++ flag that's not valid for the compiler. So we get a C++ warning. This only started showing up after the verbosity and the tox command was increased. So I don't know if this is contributing to it, but that's something that needs to be cleaned up. But in a nutshell, we have a failure manifesting in the Python test suite. The test suite is timing out after 20 minutes, and that also needs some debugging to figure out what's taking so long to run. I don't have any stats on this at the moment, but that's another one of the fun problems. Oh, before I move off this, one other detail that manifested in the job with the comparison stats for profiling. The job that passed had output 2 HTML tags for test suite and /test suite. That was in the job that passed. The job that failed did not contain this. I don't know if it was written after the timeout occurred, but this was another delta that showed up between the passing and failing logs. Does anybody have any questions about this? I know it's kind of vague, but the symptoms are all over. The failures are very cryptic right now.
Yeah, Joey, I also tried to get something from those, but there's nothing evident as of now. So even the Volta Go controller job fails, and that also points to a timeout. I'm not sure if it's pointing to a generic problem altogether, but there also we see a lot of timeout problem. We don't see any problems as such with the tests or anything. At the end, it times out and the Jenkins kills the job.
I'm going to keep an eye out for them. If anybody encounters any job failures due to timeouts, could you just send me the URL so I can include it in the tracking grid? Maybe some extra data points will help pinpoint what tests or what builds are involved when the timeouts show up. But yeah, something's going on.
Yeah, let me share the VGC one.
Okay. Oh, I did add the one that was posted in Slack this morning. I did include that on the tracking grid already. Okay, does anybody have it? Oh, go ahead.
Joe, yeah, just help me to understand better. So you said that there are a lot of jobs failing,
Correct.
and when you check them, you see there are a lot of timeout errors here and there. But we haven't yet identified what is caused to these timeouts,
Yes.
or if this is a single place of timeout or different kinds of timeouts.
The clarification I would probably add is there's actually two failure sources. One are timeouts, and the other one is failures due to end-to-end tests. What I have seen, or what we've been seeing for behavior, these failures are not specific to any individual patch. The failures are manifesting in multiple patches. You can actually look at any of the patches that are in Garrett right now for code review, and you can find failures in all of them, or in a good share of them, that they're either an end-to-end test or a timeout failure. Specifically for VOLTHA Protos, since we've been looking at that right now, we've seen two different test timeout failures just in VOLTHA Protos. As Abhilash just said, I don't think that's specific just to VOLTHA Protos.
Okay, got it.
Oh, I've got the link, Abhilash, too, for VOLTHA Go controller. I'll add that. But yeah, this is under research. Oh, and this, as I said, this is not filled in yet, but you can see some of the overlap, like patch 35209 failed for the sanity, the OLTONU sanity test for DT. That was 5352 or 53, too many numbers, 5331. But if I go in and actually start filling in this grid, you're going to see a lot of different red dots in these, because we're basically seeing them over and over. And some of the behavior that you can see for patches, you can take the same patch and run it over and over and over again, and you'll see sometimes jobs will succeed a lot less frequently than they fail. But yeah, it's all over the map right now. Okay, when somebody has time, this is minor. I went in and did some lint cleanups after running the pre-commit tool. This is just some of the cleanups that are ongoing. If anybody wants to submit lint cleanups, you can. So this is just a link to the
Right.
yes.
I guess we're better to solve these problems before adding more and more new patches that are failing. What do you think?
I don't know how hard it's going to be to track down the transient behavior. these could be tough problems. Because the symptoms are very hard to isolate. Yes, in general, I think it's a good idea not adding to the problem space.
Okay.
Yeah, code reviews, just in general, these are the open patches if anybody has time. We can, even if we don't merge the patches in, can still go in and provide code review input. And with that, if there's any questions or, the floor is open for discussion, if anybody would like to bring anything up. And if anybody would like to debug the transient problems, those are going to be fun. Okay, so let's see.
I am looking into those, but I would need your help in case if I need some information. But yeah, I'll try to check because these are blocking a lot of comments as of now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the diversity of the problems, it looks like they're patching or they're blocking a good share of the patches that are waiting to be merged.
Yeah.
One thing we might want to also, or I'll try and go back and do. So we had for the VOLTHA, for the SCA profiling, there were multiple job failures for the timeouts that showed up. Probably would not hurt to go in and mine the statistics for the other failing jobs to see if there's any correlation between the individual lint pieces that are failing. But it's just more data gathering. Okay. Okay, so I guess this is the second call for any items that people would like to bring up for discussion. And if there's any questions about any of this, feel free to bring it up. Okay. So I guess there's nothing else to bring up. I guess we can give you back 30 minutes in your day then. And yeah, just in general, if anybody does come up with any encounter any more timeout failures, yeah, if you could just send them to me so we can keep an eye on them. Okay, I guess thanks for joining.
Thanks, Jay. Bye.
Yep, bye.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks. Bye bye.